All right, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Joe Rogan, RFK Jr., Dr. Hotez drama because there's a lot going on here and there's a lot of people getting involved in it. Of course, Elon Musk is responding to pretty much every tweet from Joe and backing him up, but Mark Cuban, he's responding and calling Joe out. He's trying to insinuate that Joe is bullying this doctor by asking him to have a debate on his podcast. And then Steve will do it, told him to shut up. And Brendan Schaub, he chimed in as well. He responded to Mark Cuban. And this tweet did pretty well for him. He said, "Boy, the term bullying sure has changed since I was a kid."
Define bullying for me.
And I also saw Brendan Schaub's best friend, Aaron Rodgers. He had something to say about this as well. He posted this to Instagram. I'll play the video here in a second. He said, RFK Jr. would mop this bum. And he posted this clip of Dr. Hotez on Joe's podcast. He had already made an appearance on there before all this, but it didn't go very well. And it got kind of awkward in the middle of it when Joe started questioning his eating habits.
Take care of your immune system in other ways. Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.
How often?
What?
How often?
How often do I steal a bag of chips or something like that?
How often do you eat garbage?
I don't know. No, hopefully not every day, but
hopefully not every day.
Yeah, maybe a couple of times a week.
Oh,
that's what with Rachel, my daughter with autism. That's like our thing is to go to the it's called the burger joint or to Shake Shack to get a cheeseburger. We'll sneak some fries.
So you
live in large, we call it.
Like that mouth pleasure so much, you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of health.
I am, yeah. I have to concede that's the case.
Large body of data that connects poor diet to a host of diseases. Mm-hmm. That seems like a crazy decision for a guy in your line of work.
There you go. Sometimes it's not all brain. It's something else.
But, I mean, if you ate healthy food, I mean, the thing is your body starts craving healthy food. You start feeling
no question.
Results.
No question about it.
Do you take vitamins?
I don't take vitamins.
Really?
Yeah. I
Wow.
don't think they do. I don't think they're needed. Because most in the American.
Hold up. You don't think they're needed while you're eating junk food?
Well, hopefully I'm not only eating junk food,
okay,
right?
But there's a large body of clinical research on the efficacy of vitamins, especially vitamins D.
So I think that podcast was about 3 years ago. I don't know if him and Joe had any interactions in between this and what happened recently at all, but it really picked up the other day when RFK Jr. went on Joe's podcast and they started talking about vaccines and questioning them. And they even talked about Dr. Hotez a little. And RFK said he's been trying to debate him for years. And he did manage to get a phone call with him one time, I guess. And he basically said the guy doesn't know what he's talking about and everything he says is made up.
You had anyone debate you publicly about any of these?
Nobody will debate me. For 18 years, nobody will debate me. In fact, I've scheduled many, many debates. And I've asked Hotez many, many times to debate me. And I think you've asked him, here, why don't you debate Robert Kennedy? And he said, because he's a cunning lawyer or something like that. But I've debated Hotez on the telephone with kind of a referee. And, his science is just made up. He cannot stand by it. He can't cite studies.
Well, he was trying to tell me that vaccines don't cause autism. I asked him what does. And he said, there's there's environmental factors they're aware of. I go, what are those? And he couldn't cite them.
Yeah.
Like, how can you be so sure to say this definitely doesn't, but you're telling me there's a bunch of environmental factors that do cause it, and we're aware of those factors, but you're not aware of them, and you're an expert in this?
Yeah.
How is that possible? He's a health expert.
So then after this podcast, Hotez, he tweeted out this Vice article titled, "Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation." And then Hotez said, "It's really true, just awful. And from all the online attacks I'm receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense." And then Joe responded and he said, "Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I'm offering you $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show show with no time limit. And then Hotez put out this tweet, and I think he deleted it right away. He responded, he said, "Be serious, Joe. That's what you throw out for your hunting buddies on a weekend. A $50 million endowment, which you, Spotify, RFK Jr. can easily afford. Not for me, but so we can continue to make low-cost, patent-free vaccines for the world's poor," preceded by RFK Jr.'s public apology. Yeah, so I think he deleted that one, and Joe called him out for it. But he also said, "Joe, you have my cell, my email. I'm always willing to speak with you." So it doesn't sound like he's interested in talking to RFK. And Joe said, "This is a non-answer. I challenge you publicly because you publicly quote tweeted and agreed with the dog shit Vice article. If you're really serious about what you stand for, you now have a massive opportunity for a debate that will reach the largest audience a discussion like this has ever had. If you think someone else is better qualified, suggest that person." And then Peter said, "I'm happy to come on and clear the air. I respect you and your show. I don't want an adversarial relationship. I think we can work well together." And then Joe just kept going after him, and he said, "To those misunderstanding what he's saying, he's not agreeing to debate RFK Jr. He's just offering to come on the show by himself." And then he started retweeting a bunch of tweets about him, like that video I played earlier. He retweeted that. So it was not going well for him. He did have some supporters, though. Mark Hamill, George Takei, they came and backed him up. But it did not seem like Joe wanted to have just him on the podcast. It sounds like he's only interested in talking to him if RFK Jr.'s there. And I think Hotez should have just passed this off to somebody else. Like when Joe said, "Is there anybody else more qualified that I could talk to?" He should have recommended somebody, because if he goes on there, it's not going to end well. Even if you just talk to Joe, I don't think it's going well. Like even Mark Cuban, who's trying to defend Dr. Hotez, and he's calling Joe out, I think he even knows if Hotez were to debate Joe, it would not go well. Like right here he says, "Joe, you aren't trying to find the ground truth on vaccines. If you were, you'd bring on someone who focused on debating the issue, like the real truther. Trying to bully Dr. Hotez is ridiculous. You have a producer that will prepare you, and you get to control the conversation. RFK also has a staff ready to prepare him, and these topics are what he talks about in every speech." So it sounds like he's saying Joe knows this wouldn't be a fair fight, and that's why he wants to have him on, just to embarrass him. And he obviously thinks Dr. Hotez is not the best person to debate this issue. And then the next morning, I think it was, Dr. Hotez put out this tweet, and he said, "I was just stalked in front of my house by a couple of anti-vaxxers taunting me to debate RFK Jr." And I think at first people are like, what is he talking about? Is he being serious? And then this guy, the same guy that caught EDP, if you remember this guy, he also has like a predator catching channel, I guess. He decided to just show up at this doctor's house and confront him outside, which I think is too much. Showing up at this guy's house is a little ridiculous. And I did see a lot of people saying that. They're like, all right, this is just too far.
Oh, are you Peter Hotez?
I am. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Hey. So why are you not going to debate RFK on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Oh, come on, that's harassing.
I'm just curious.
What?
Nothing hostile. Just curious.
I haven't said anything one way or the other.
I mean, are you planning on doing it?
He just invited me, so we'll see.
And I think you should, though.
Well, we'll give it some thought.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do you have to say to people who think they were vaccine injured?
Come on.
Anything for them?
Don't come to my house.
I mean, do you have anything to say to people that think? Do you have anything to say to people? Yeah. I mean, do you think vaccine injuries are real, Peter? Peter, it's just a question. Settle the science now. On a safari to go vaccinate more kids?
So I think at this point, the charity offer that Joe said he would make if he did the podcast, I think that's up to almost $2 million. A bunch of other people said they throw in $100,000. Like I think Andrew Tristan Tate and Patrick Bet-David and Tim Pool, I think maybe. I also saw Sugar Sean O'Malley. He talked about throwing in a whole $1,000. So it's getting up there at this point. But I can't imagine this debate ever actually happens, especially after this guy just showed up at his house. That's obviously not helping at all. But I don't think he's going to debate RFK Jr. I think he would go on Joe's podcast, maybe. But if RFK Jr.'s there, definitely not. I think maybe we could see Mark Cuban on there with that other guy that he keeps talking about. That seems like a possibility. I mean, it sounds like Rogan and RFK are open to talking to other people, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments. I'm sure it's not over. I'm sure there'll be more. I'll cover it, so make sure you subscribe to this, and make sure you go check out my Patreon account. I have a bunch of videos up there, probably over 30 at this point. I post every week. There's a lot of good content. The videos are pretty long, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description. And then make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video.